The annual Virtual Rainbow brings together LGBTQ+ youth and their families, healthcare providers, community members, and other professionals to learn about and celebrate diversity and inclusion. Thank you for joining, everyone, and welcome. It is my great honor to introduce Ivan McDonald. Ivan is going to be providing our land acknowledgement this morning. Ivan is an enrolled member of the Blackfeet tribe that's located here in northern Montana. He received his MSW from the University of Montana, and since then has dedicated his career to racial and gender-based justice. Currently, he works at the as the community engagement lead for the Montana Racial Equity Project that's based here in Bozeman. And with his sister Ivy, he's the most recent recipient of the ACLU of Montana's Jeanette Rankin Peace Award for 2020 for their work on raising awareness for the missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit. Ivan, it's a pleasure and honor to have you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you for that great introduction, Paul. Okini Stuni Danagu, Utsupi Sakumapi. Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome you to this day. Like Paul said, my name is Ivan McDonald. I'm a member of the Blackfeet tribe. I've been asked to do the land acknowledgement. I currently am residing in Billings, Montana, on traditional Apselica land. I know that the conference base is in Bozeman, which is on Apselica, Cheyenne, and Salish traditional homelands. I do my land acknowledgements a little bit different. I've worked with a lot of great Indigenous scholars, activists, community organizers, and as much as I acknowledge all of the land, not even the land I currently reside on as Indigenous land, I also like to acknowledge the people who were forcibly brought here, so enslaved people, people of African descent, and try to be acknowledged of the land in which it has connection to all of us. I'm always someone who does my land acknowledgements with some sort of action. So I'm going to be dropping a little link in the chat. You can kind of check whose land you're currently residing on in sort of any geographical space in the world. That just kind of gives people a little understanding and sort of a deeper understanding of whose land do you reside on. I'm very aware that as a person of Blackfeet ancestry, the lands, anytime I leave the borders of my lands, I am residing on someone else's land. And I always try to be as respectful as possible, know the history, know the culture, know the community. And I would just like to thank you all for attending today, allowing me to be present and to help open this. And I do have a presentation with another Indigenous person later today at 5 on BIPOC LGBT community building and solidarity. And, I just welcome you and thank you for being here and present during the next few days. And as you kind of navigate these spaces, I've provided that link in the chat just to kind of keep aware of where we are in time and space. Thank you very much.
Ivan, thank you so much for that. We're so grateful for your time and that and those words. And I do notice that some people have posted in the chat. Mia, thank you so much for that information. And we encourage you to share information that's relevant, or text your colleagues and peers. You can direct message, and you can also send a message to everyone. So please take full advantage of doing that. Well, with that, I will now ask for some opening remarks. Like last year, we asked a representative from here at Montana State University to provide some opening remarks about some of the work that's going on here at our university and the outreach efforts that are happening from all the great faculty and staff working in diversity and inclusion. And this year, we're very honored to have Dr. Mariah Hill. Dr. Hill is a licensed psychologist and the diversity coordinator at the Counseling and Psychological Services at MSU Bozeman. She started the Safe Zone training program here on campus in 2008 in partnership with our Diversity and Inclusion Student Commons. And now there are literally thousands of individuals across our campus community that have been trained. And more recently, she has started the Diversity and Inclusion Development Program here on campus in 2018 to provide education awareness and skill development related to diversity, inclusion, and equity for the MSU Bozeman campus. Mariah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. Well, welcome everyone to the second annual Rainbow Over the Rockies Stronger Together virtual summit. As Paul introduced me, my name is Mariah Hill and I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I am a licensed psychologist and the diversity coordinator at Counseling and Psych Services here in Bozeman. And so I'm just going to talk to you today a little bit about my work with LGBTQ students and at MSU and the importance of community. So as mentioned in the intro, I've been at MSU for a little while. And I started my role as a senior staff psychologist at CPS back in 2008. And my initial work with LGBTQ plus students was primarily that first year providing individuals psychotherapy. But at some point, a colleague in my department approached me and asked me if I was familiar with if we had a Safe Zone program at MSU. And at the time we didn't. And as serendipity would have it, I had just completed the year before a postdoc at Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia, and had been Safe Zone trained and trained to be a trainer and provided Safe Zone trainings, and had wanted to bring that back to MSU campus. So that conversation really planted the seed, which there was already an interest. But I think about this theme of stronger together and the collaborations and the partnerships that came together to make a Safe Zone happen. So the next year, in partnership with the DISC office, at the time it was called the Diversity Awareness Office, and Venosha Bowerly, if any of you know her, she was the program manager there at the time. And so we partnered together and we launched our very first Safe Zone workshop. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Safe Zone, it's a program that appears on campuses and universities across the nation. And I believe that it is also in some high schools as well. And it basically provides training and education and awareness to individuals around LGBTQ plus identity, while developing an ally network and really trying to expand that safety, inclusion, and equity. So we launched our first program, as I said, that year in 2009. And the first couple years, you know, it took a while for people to kind of become aware of Safe Zone. But we continued training people, and kind of the awareness of the program grew. A lot of it was word of mouth, really. So again, I think of this theme of stronger together, and that as people participated in Safe Zone and shared their experience with others or posted their decals and people said, "What's that?" Right? And then they shared information about it. It really did inspire more interest. And I also think I want to give credit to our students as well, because they would be at, you know, division startups for the year and wrap-ups at the end of the year. And sometimes they would give shout outs to the Safe Zone program and really encourage the faculty and staff to seek out this programming. So again, this theme of different kinds of partnerships, collaborations, and really support that helped to really strengthen this program And as Paul said, I think now we're in the thousands in terms of the number of people that have been Safe Zone trained. And our mission at Safe Zone is similar to that of the Rainbow Over the Rockies here. And that is to promote an inviting and inclusive environment that is emotionally and physically safe for LGBTQ plus students, faculty, and staff. And so we do that. We started out, I think I mentioned, we had one module in the beginning that was 2 hours. And today we have 3 different workshops, and we focus on education and awareness, ally development, and then reducing bias and microaggressions, specifically related to gender identity and sexual orientation. And again, that expansion of the program it came from all of the people that participated in the program and provided feedback over the years. So again, I think the program really is stronger from coming together and really hearing from people and trying to include those voices in this program as we go forward through the years through their feedback. So part of the impetus for Safe Zone and bringing that to the MSU campus was to address the invisibility and lack of programming and services that relates to sexual and gender identity at the time. We have a lot more services and programs and groups now today than we did back then. But recognizing that like other underrepresented groups, that there's a history of, and that this continues today, of discrimination and oppression against members of the LGBTQ plus community. And as a psychologist, I work with students who identify as LGBTQ plus frequently, every year, every semester. And sometimes the source of their mental health issues that they're coming into therapy for relate to or are exacerbated by the discrimination, the stereotypes, the exclusion that they experience based on their identity, who they are, related to their gender and or sexual orientation. And I want to emphasize that this isn't every story. Not every student that's LGBTQ plus that comes to me necessarily is coming in for those reasons. But there are some students that are very much affected by the systems and by the people and how they are treated. And you know, this proliferates in our history, and it continues today, and really affects people's safety and ability to bring their full selves into the different social spaces that we move through in life, you know, whether that's academia, work, healthcare, family, or friendships. And this can lead to isolation, right? When we don't feel safe to be who we are, to bring who we are into the spaces and in our relationships and connections with others, it can be very lonely and very isolating. And we know in the mental health field that this can be a risk factor for mental health issues, such as depression, and a greater risk for suicide as well. And I think about this time of COVID over this past year plus, where it's just compounded, right? Those isolation factors, as we've been given these directives to be safe, we need to socially distance, which doesn't mean being disconnected, but it has changed things. And so, you know, the data shows under these conditions that LGBTQ plus individuals have been more affected economically, but also in terms of their mental health, that they're reporting greater levels of stress and just overall greater impacts to their mental health. And there's a variety of reasons that, you know, that this could be, but I think about less connection to communities as we've had to socially isolate and may not have access to those communities where individuals can feel safe, that they can bring their full selves. And also just being in environments as people are isolating. And I think about our students too, where, you know, during this shutdown, they may have had to go home, and there may not have been homes that were supportive or affirming of their LGBTQ plus identity, or even known. And so again, we know that this can really have an effect on psychological wellness. So that connection, community really supports psychological wellness, suicide prevention, and really does make us stronger together. So part of the mission of Safe Zone has been to promote connection and community. And it's our belief that promoting a campus environment that is more accepting, affirming, and celebrating of the diversity within our community, including LGBTQ plus individuals, that our community is stronger and benefits everyone. And I think this extends beyond just the MSU campus environment. And this theme of stronger together is multiplied with other programs, organizations, and events like this virtual Rainbow Over the Rockies Stronger Together Summit, that it can broaden networks, links, and ties to multiple communities, people, and organizations across the state. So I want to thank Paul and Deb and all of the other program organizers and presenters who collaborated together to make this event happen, and the participants that are here today. I really hope that everyone comes away from this summit stronger in making some new connection, whether that's educational, social, or communal. Thanks, everyone.
Mariah, thank you so much. We do have a few minutes before the top of the hour, and I do want to invite our participants to post their own land acknowledgements or just introductions if they feel comfortable doing that into the chat. And I'd also like to invite any questions for Mariah or Ivan that any of you have, questions or comments. And while you're thinking about those, you can post those in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I'll just remind you, we're posting the links to our document share and our question board. So please take full advantage of those. And again, you will be eligible for door prizes, some great door prizes, and you can see what those door prizes are. So any questions, comments for Mariah or Ivan? Anyone at all? Don't be shy. Thank you for posting in the chat. Again, any introductions you'd like to provide? Mariah, let me ask you, our next session will be dealing with COVID-19. And can you talk a little bit about what you've seen with what your office has done in response to COVID-19 and observations that you've made in terms of our LGBTQ community?
Yeah, so I mean, our office, like everyone, was definitely affected by COVID, and we very quickly had to shift gears last March. I was actually away on spring break, and when I came back, really life had changed. I had been seeing clients in person, and when I came back, I went through an intensive 20-hour online training to do online mental health services. And at that point, we had already shifted to doing all of our services via telemental health. And that continues today. So that was definitely an adjustment. So we are providing services to students, and we have been throughout the time of COVID, and that does take place virtually. Our offices we have people in our offices. Our doors are locked, but students do have access if they don't have their own computer or they don't have a private space, because we want to maintain that confidentiality. Then we provide that, and we just set that up in ahead of time, and they can call once they get to our offices, and somebody will let them in to access, because we still want our services to be accessible, and recognizing that not everybody has a private space or has, you know, their own computer that's reliable for doing mental health services. And certainly we have continued to see LGBTQ plus students. And I think some of what I mentioned before, you know, I think a lot of people are just, you know, we're really affected by just the restriction to a lot of resources that help us cope with stresses in life, right? That a lot of times spending time with friends, going to the gym, exercising, having things to look forward to, like spring break or traveling, that these things oftentimes are, you know, what we work on as part of self-care and coping in therapy. And COVID just really made that very, very challenging, because all of a sudden, the very resources that people access, right, to cope with the stress of life were more inhibited, or they just didn't have the access. And that's true for our LGBTQ plus students as well. We have QSA here on campus, the Queer Straight Alliance. And so there was, you know, that's kind of fluctuated in terms, they continue to meet. They're a very hardy group. And so some of their meetings were in person, but of course, under safe, you know, social distancing and masked. But then, you know, as numbers go up and risk goes up, you know, they move to online. But again, still provided, you know, access to maintain some of those connections and that sense of community. So I've also been struck by just the creativity and the resilience too of people throughout this extraordinary year, really unprecedented, extraordinary year. And so while there are challenges, I think to those connections and community, also there's a lot of creativity. And I think, again, it just speaks to how important those connections in that community is.
Mariah, thanks so much again for those opening remarks and taking the question. We're coming up to the top of the hour, so I'll just remind you again, you'll have to log in to each session. So look at the website. You can click on each session. As you can see, most are plenary, and we do have some concurrent sessions. So with that, we will conclude our opening welcome. And again, a big thank you to Ivan and to Mariah for joining us this morning. And of course, to all of you for taking time to share in our Rainbows Over the Rockies Stronger Together Summit. We'll be starting at the top of the hour, so we'll see you in the next room. Again, thanks everyone for joining us, and see you in just a moment. Bye now.